There is no denying that choice improves the quality of our lives. It enables us to control our destinies and to come close to getting exactly what we want out of any situation. Choice is essential to autonomy, which is absolutely fundamental to well-being. Healthy people want and need to direct their own lives. On the other hand, the fact that some choice is good doesn't necessarily mean that more choice is better. There is a cost to having an overload of choice.
64,000 is the median number of words per book. Average person reads about 200 words per minute. Simple math will tell us that is one book in 320 minutes. To accomplish this in 7 days, numbers say you would have to read for 45 minutes a day. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button, like, comment, and share. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Book of the Week series. Every week as I read another amazing title, I share it with the world. My name is Igor S.F. Walker. Today we look at the paradox of choice, why more is less, by Barry Schwartz. So how about you slow down and relax? Reduce all that noise for just a bit. Make that choice and decide to listen. In this video, we look at the amazing paradox of choice. We believe more choice is more freedom and more happiness. However, data and experience shows exactly the opposite. How is this possible and why? Stick around till the end. I will share with you some tools I haven't used that will help you tremendously in this game of life. Discover a way to find out what actually motivates you, what innate human need is driving all of your decisions and your behavior. I will share some tools to improve your self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management. Clinging tenaciously to all the choices available to us contributes to bad decisions, to anxiety, stress, and dissatisfaction, even to clinical depression. Freedom is essential to self-respect, public participation, mobility, and nourishment. But not all choice enhances freedom. In particular, increased choice amongst goods and services may contribute little or nothing to the kind of freedom that actually counts. Indeed, it may impair freedom by taking time and energy we would be better off devoting to other matters. I believe that we make the most of our freedoms by learning to make good choices about the things that matter, while at the same time unburdening ourselves from too much concern about the things that actually don't. Scanning the shelves of my local supermarket recently, I found 85 different varieties and brands of crackers. As I read the packages, I discover that some brands had sodium, others didn't. Some were fat-free, others weren't. They came in big boxes and small boxes, normal size, bite size. They were mundane saltiness, exotic and expensive imports. My neighborhood supermarket is not a particularly large store, and yet next to the crackers there were 285 varieties of cookies. Among chocolate chip cookies, there were 21 options. Among the goldfish, I don't know whether to count them as cookies or crackers, there were 20 different varieties to choose from. Across the aisle were juices, 13 sport drinks, 65 boxed drinks for kids, 85 other flavors and brands of juices, and 75 iced teas and adult drinks. I could get these tea drinks sweetened, sugar or artificial sweetener, lemoned or flavored. A typical supermarket carries more than 30,000 items. Now that's a lot to choose from, and more than 20,000 new products hit the shelves every year, and almost all of them are doomed to failure. Perhaps that is the reason consumers tend to return to the products that they usually buy, not even noticing 75% of the items that are competing for their attention and their dollars. Americans spend more time shopping than the members of any other society. They go to shopping centers about once a week, more often than they actually go to the houses of worship. And Americans have more shopping centers than actually high schools. In a recent survey, 93% of teenage girls surveyed said that shopping was their favorite activity. Apparently people are shopping more, but they're enjoying it less. It's not so odd, perhaps, that people spend more time shopping than they used to. With all the options available, picking what you want takes more effort. But why do people enjoy it less? And if they do enjoy it less, why do they keep on doing it? A large array of options may discourage customers because it forces an increase in the effort that goes into making a decision. So consumers decide not to decide, and they don't buy the product. Or if they do, the effort that the decision requires distracts from the enjoyment derived from the results. Also, a large array of results may diminish the attractiveness of what people actually choose. The reason being that thinking about the attractions of some of the unchosen options detracts from the pleasure derived from the chosen one. Why can't people just ignore many or some of the options and treat a 30 option array as if it were a 6 option array? Well, first, an industry of marketers and advisors makes products difficult or even impossible to ignore. They are in our faces all the time. Second, we have a tendency to look around at what others are doing and use them as a standard of comparison. Third, we may suffer from what economist Fred Hirsch referred to as the tyranny of small decisions. We say to ourselves, well, let's go to one more store. Let's just look at one more item. It always seems easy to add just one more item to the array that is already being considered. So we go from 6 options to 30, one option at a time. Companies are now competing for our business. In many parts of the country, again, we are forced to educate ourselves so that the decisions we make will be well informed. Now, according to a survey conducted by Yankelevich Partners, majority of people want more control of the details of their lives, but a majority of people also want to simplify their lives. There you have it, the paradox of our times. We probably would be deeply resentful if someone tried to take our freedom of choice away in any part of life that we really cared about and really knew something about. If it were up to us to choose whether or not to have choice, we would opt for choice almost every time. But it is the cumulative effort of these added choices that I think is causing substantial distress. In any given domain, we say a resounding yes to choice, but we never cast a vote on the whole package of choices. Nonetheless, by voting yes in every particular situation, we are in effect voting yes on the package, with the consequence that we are left feeling barely able to manage. See, choosing well is difficult, and most decisions have several different dimensions. Most good decisions will involve these steps. Figure out your goal or goals. Evaluate the importance of each goal. Array the options. Evaluate how likely each of the options is to meet your goals. Pick the winning option. Later, use the consequences of your choices to modify your goals and the importance you assign them and the way you evaluate future possibilities. These are the steps. Even with a limited number of options, going through these options could be hard work. As the number of options increases, the effort required to make a good decision escalates as well, which is one of the reasons that the choice can be transformed from a blessing into a burden. The Nobel Prize winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman and his colleagues have shown that what we remember about the pleasurable quality of our past experience is almost entirely determined by two things: how the experience felt when they were at their peak, best or worst, and how they felt when they ended. This peak end rule of Kahneman's is what we use to summarize the experience, and then we rely on that summary later on to remind ourselves of how the experience felt. So how well do we know what we want? Well, the discrepancy between logic and memory suggests that we don't always know what we want. The availability heuristic says that we assume that the more available some people is to memory, the more frequently we must have encountered it in the past. This heuristic is partly true. In general, the frequency of experience does affect its availability to memory, but frequency of experience is not the only thing that affects availability to memory. Salience or vividness matters as well. People mistook the persuasiveness of media stories about homicides, accidents, or fires, vivid, salient, and easily available to memory, as a sign of the frequency these stories are profiled in media. This distortion causes us to miscalculate dramatically the various risks we face in life, and thus contributes to some very bad decision making. What often saves us from our faulty decision-making process is the fact that different people experience different vivid or salient events, thus have different events available to memory. It seems to be a fairly general principle that when making choices amongst alternatives that involve a certain amount of risk or uncertainty, we prefer a small, sure gain to a larger, uncertain one. Most of us, for example, will choose a sure $100 over a coin flip, a 50-50 chance, that determines whether we win $200 or nothing. When the possibility involves losses, however, we will risk a large loss to avoid a smaller one. For example, we will choose a coin toss to determine whether we lose $200 or nothing over a sure loss of $100. It is the framing of the choice that affects our perception of it, and in turn, it affects what we actually choose. Now, some studies have estimated that losses have more than twice the psychological impact as equivalent gains. The fact is, we all hate to lose, which Kahneman and Tversky refer to as loss aversion. While maximizers and perfectionists Both have very high standards. I think that perfectionists have a very high standard that they do not expect to meet, whereas maximizers have very high standards that they do expect to meet. Choice has a clear and a powerful instrumental value. It enables people to get what they need and what they want in life, whereas many needs are universal. Food, shelter, medical care, social support, education, and so on. Much of what we need to flourish is highly individualized. Choice is what enables each person to pursue precisely those objects and those activities that best satisfy his or their own preference within the limits of his or her own financial resources. Now remember, 65% of people who didn't have cancer said that if they got it, they would prefer to choose their own treatment. Now, of those who actually had cancer, 88% said they would prefer not to choose. Apparently, we always think we want choice, but when we actually get it, we may not like it and we're looking for someone else to make it. Meanwhile, the need to choose is ever more an aspect of life, and it causes us more distress than we realize. According to standard economic assumptions, the only opportunity cost that should figure into a decision are the ones associated with the next best alternative. Ultimately, the quality of choice that matters to people is the subjective experience that the choices do afford. And if beyond a certain point, having options actually diminishes our subjective experience that we're looking for, and we are worse off for it. Anytime you make a decision and it actually doesn't turn out well, or you find an alternative that would have turned out better, you are a candidate for regret. This is post-decision regret. Regret that occurs after we have experienced the results of a decision. But there's also something called anticipated regret, which rears its head even before a decision is made. How will it feel to buy this sweater only to find a nicer, cheaper one in the next store? How will it feel if I take this job only to have a better opportunity appear just next week? Post-decision regrets is sometimes referred to as buyer's remorse. Anticipated regret will make decisions harder to make, and post-decision regret will make them harder to enjoy. Individuals facing decisions involving trade-offs and thus opportunities to regret will avoid making those decisions altogether. Or if they cannot avoid the decision completely, they will construe them so that they no longer seem to involve trade-offs. Not surprisingly, when confronted with decisions, we often choose the option that minimizes the chances that we will experience regret. Now, unlike adaptation, the experience of gratitude is something we can affect directly. Experiencing and expressing gratitude actually gets easier with practice, by causing us to focus on how much better our lives are than they would have been or they were before. The disappointment that adaptation brings in its wake can actually be blunted. Happy people have the ability to distract themselves and move on, whereas unhappy people get stuck, ruminating, and then make themselves more and more miserable. By forcing us to look around at what others are doing before we make decisions, the world of bountiful options is encouraging a process that will often, if not always, leave us feeling worse about our decisions than we would if we hadn't engaged in the process to begin with. Here's yet another reason, while increasing available options will decrease our satisfaction with what we choose. Clearly, our experience of choice as a burden rather than a privilege is not a simple phenomena. Rather, it is a result of a complex interactions among many psychological processes that actually permeate our culture, including rising expectations, awareness of opportunity cost, aversion to trade-offs, adaptation, regrets, self-blame, the tendency to engage in social comparisons, and maximizing. The success of modernity turns out to be bittersweet. And everywhere we look, it appears that a significant contributing factor is the overabundance of choice. Having too many choices produces psychological distress, especially when combined with regret, concern about status, adaptation, social comparison, and perhaps most important, the desire to have the best of everything, to maximize. And there you have it, the paradox of choice, why more is less. Now please do help out. It is easy. Simply like this video so more people can enjoy it. Share it too and spread the word. Do leave a comment and share your thoughts. Start a conversation. Subscribe to my channel and stay up to date. The link to this book is in the description below. Buy it, read, never stop learning, especially learning about yourself and about nature. So gift yourself by taking the free human needs test on my website and find out what actually motivates you. What innate human need is driving all of your decisions and your behavior. And if you feel you are ready to improve your self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management even further, well, do check out my Master of Life Awareness program. The links are in the description below. Thank you. Love and respect.